I opened my late grandmother's recipe box and found 45 driver's licenses that weren't hers. My grandmother passed away 3 weeks ago at 87, and I inherited her tiny house in rural Montana because nobody else wanted it. The place smelled like mothballs and Bengay, and I was ready to donate everything and sell the property until I found the recipe box. It was sitting on the kitchen counter like it had been waiting for me. Green metal, dented on one corner, with faded flowers painted on the lid. I remembered her making cookies from it when I was little, her wrinkled hands pulling out index cards covered in her looping handwriting. I opened it expecting recipes. The first thing I saw was a Kentucky driver's license for a woman named Patricia Hollis. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 32 years old in the photo. The license expired in 1994. I thought maybe Grandma had found it somewhere and kept it to return. Then I pulled out the next card. Angela Freeman, Ohio. Expired 1987. Then another. And another. I dumped the entire box onto the kitchen table, and 45 driver's licenses scattered across the surface like a horrible deck of cards. Every single one was a different woman, different states, different years. The oldest expired in 1981, the newest in 2019. Not one recipe in the entire box. My hands were shaking as I spread them out. I started noticing patterns. They were all women between 25 and 40. They all had light-colored hair. They all looked vaguely similar to each other, the way strangers sometimes do. I grabbed my laptop and started searching names. Patricia Hollis, missing since July 1994. Last seen at a rest stop outside Lexington, Kentucky. My stomach dropped. Angela Freeman, disappeared August 1987 after leaving work in Cleveland. I searched 5 more names. Every single one came back the same way. Missing, vanished, never found. I called my mother with hands I couldn't control. Did Grandma ever mention working in law enforcement or being connected to missing persons cases? My mom laughed. Your grandma? She worked at the post office for 40 years. Why? I found something in her recipe box. Something really weird. What kind of weird? I couldn't say it. Not yet. I'll call you back. I hung up and kept searching. 20 names, 30, 42 out of 45 women were listed as missing persons. The other 3 had no online presence at all, which somehow felt worse. Then I found the article. A blog post from 2003 about unsolved disappearances along Interstate 90. The author had mapped 17 missing women cases from 1981 to 2001. Every single one vanished from rest stops, gas stations, or small motels within 5 miles of the highway. The blogger called it the I-90 corridor vanishings. I pulled up a map and started marking locations based on the licenses. Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. Every single disappearance traced a route along I-90 from Seattle to Boston. My grandmother's post office route was I-90. She drove it for 37 years. I felt sick. I called the police and tried to explain what I'd found. The dispatcher sounded skeptical until I read off the names, and then she went quiet. Ma'am, stay exactly where you are. Do not touch anything else. Officers are on their way. They arrived in 20 minutes. 2 detectives and 4 police officers for a dead woman's house in the middle of nowhere. They photographed every license, bagged them as evidence, and started tearing apart the house. In the basement, they found a locked freezer that I'd assumed was broken because it was unplugged. When they pried it open, I heard one officer gag. They wouldn't let me see inside, but they evacuated me to a hotel 40 miles away. The FBI showed up the next day. They found remains in the freezer. They found more buried in the backyard. They found jewelry in the attic that matched descriptions from missing persons reports going back 40 years. The lead detective pulled me aside on day 3. Your grandmother was meticulous. She kept everything. Licenses, jewelry, photographs. We've identified 31 victims so far. There might be more. How? I whispered. How did nobody know? She was careful. Picked women who were traveling alone. Took them from places with no cameras. Buried them in remote locations. Your grandmother had 37 years of practice. They found her journal in a hollowed out Bible. Detailed entries about each woman. How she'd lured them. What she'd done. Where she'd buried them. She rated them like recipes. Some were perfectly seasoned. Others were bland or disappointing. The I-90 killer had been my grandmother. The woman who baked me cookies and taught me to knit had murdered at least 31 women over 4 decades. Maybe more. They're still digging. My mother hasn't spoken to me since the story broke. She thinks I'm lying. That I planted evidence to get attention. The rest of my family thinks I'm a monster for not defending Grandma's memory. But I saw the journal. I read her handwriting. The same looping letters that wrote out cookie recipes also described how she'd strangled a woman in Pennsylvania and buried her near a rest stop. I inherited a house from a serial killer, and the only thing she left me was the truth. The recipe box sits in an evidence locker now, and 45 families finally have answers. I just wish I didn't have to be the one who gave them.